Hello and welcome to episode 156. I'm Jason.
I'm Bill. And let's start off with boxing because we never talk about boxing.
Ever.
And I gotta admit, Tyson Fury has captured my imagination.
It has.
And he's been great in one of the Rocky movies, don't you think?
Oh, yeah.
Like the giant fighting Sylvester Stallone, that would have been awesome. But, his personality is as big as he is. That's what I like about him.
I think boxing is a sport where, I think boxing needs the sizzle as much as it needs the steak. Whereas the NFL, I'm happy just like I said, I don't watch pregame, I don't watch postgame unless it's like I'm listening to Tomlin. I just want to see the game. But with boxing, I need to know who's fighting. I need to know their records. I need to see their personalities. I need all that stuff to get me interested in the actual fight, which this one had,
Well, I think it's interesting. To me, he's the first likable champ since Muhammad Ali. Because I don't think Tyson was likable.
Not when he was Tyson. Now he's super likable in post-Tyson world. But back then, he was just a scary, no robe, just black shorts, black trunks, black shoes, just knocking people out.
Now, and there hasn't been anybody else, but this guy, he's had some issues. He's got a good backstory. He celebrates. He's a showman without being an idiot.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that.
And I loved the way Wilder and Fury came out. They both came out with their own like Wilder looked like the Lynch King from World of Warcraft. Like he had the black crown and the face mask, and and obviously the other guy came out on his throne. It was a little bit of WWE, a lot of showmanship.
It was. It did have some WWE elements to it, but I think it's okay.
Yeah, I think it's great. Like I said, as you pointed out, we've done 156 episodes now of Sutton Impact Family Style. I don't know how many times we've actually talked about just a positive boxing story. We talked a little bit about.
I think this is the first time. I can't even recall us talking about boxing.
No, because we talked about that McGregor Mayweather
Yeah, we might talk about that. Yeah.
But that was more of a stunt than an actual this is just the heavyweight. And again, the heavyweight division is your money division. That's the one people want to see.
Yeah.
And people didn't care about Klitschko, a technical Russian giant. Although he was a fun guy, but they weren't into him. But like you said, Fury's got a lot going for him.
And I would think that the rematch, if the third rematch, which is guaranteed, will be a blockbuster on pay-per-view.
Yeah. And again, I want to watch it live. I didn't
see the numbers for this one, but I assume it was pretty good.
I think it did really well because it seemed like they did a good job promoting. They were on all the morning shows, they were on all the talking head shows on ESPN. Because like you said, you got two guys that can talk, that have personality, especially in story. So people. They're great guests on the show.
And Tyson Fury embraces himself, and the name is awesome.
It is. It's just it's one of those
a lot of great stuff there. And the clothes he wears, he's outrageous even after the match is over. He just wears a sport coat with a tie with no shirt.
Yes, he was.
So I like that he's very, very likable in a sport where very few people are likable. And I just think that's important to have that going on.
And I have to say, even though obviously he is a genetic freak because he's a monster, he's giant, but I think people love rooting for non-ripped athletes. And he is he's got, he is a giant dad bod, He doesn't have the abs or the great muscle tone. I think he's much more relatable to the average bod. I think people always like to get behind, Andy Ruiz. I think we did discuss him a tiny bit. People like that he was sort of a big fat guy. There's something about, the John.
Yeah, we did talk about him. That's right. And I was intrigued because he didn't look at all like what he's supposed to be.
No, and Fury obviously has muscle, but he's definitely carrying some extra pounds. And I think.
And think about it, look at golf. Look at the guy they call Big Beef.
Yeah.
He doesn't look like a golfer. He looks like some dude going out after work on the weekend.
And I think people find that.
Everybody loves him. They go watch him. They cheer for him. It's pretty wild.
Yeah, it's great. Well, I think we can transition from one fun talk show guest to another, at least initially was a fun talk show guest, and now he's starting to make the rounds again, and that's the Ball family. He's all about, he's been pretty quiet over the last year or so, especially since Alonso moved to New Orleans. But now he's got another son who they think is going to be a top 5 pick in the draft, who he has always said was the greatest of his basketball sons that he's created. And with that, he is relaunching Big Baller Brand, the failed sneaker.
And does he talk about the price of the new Big Baller?
I think this is going to be a slightly more affordable Big Baller, but it's still going to be a high price. He still wants it to be everything that he's still trying to represent the Big Baller brand. Like, Big Baller isn't about discount. So, he's at his Facebook show, and I've seen clips of Lonzo on the Facebook show. And again, I don't know how good of an actor Lonzo Ball is, but he seems he's into the rolling of his eyes stage when his dad talks about Big Baller Brand. Like, I don't think Lonzo wants anything to do with Big Baller Brand. I think
Big Baller put the bullseye on Lonzo's back.
Yeah.
And I'm sure he's just coming into his own now. He's in a new city with less glare on him.
And he's got Zion.
Nice role on that team.
Very nice role. Throwing lob passes.
He's a piece. He's always going to be a piece.
Yeah.
He's never going to be the centerpiece.
No.
And LeVar wants always to be the centerpiece, or wants his kids to be the centerpiece. So I feel bad for the kid coming out, who really hasn't played against anybody.
No.
So we'll have to see what happens. I mean, Lonzo at least played at UCLA. He played against some good competition.
But how do you think?
We'll see what happens.
I always think about, and they've certainly recovered, but like I remember Hyundai. Like I remember those cars for the longest time were considered pretty junky, and now I think they're considered pretty reliable cars. But like Big Baller Brand was an epic fail, I would say. Like
I was given all the hype about it. Yeah, I'd say it was an epic fail.
And I've never seen them in stores, and they completely went away. Like, how good does his son have to be to launch a sneaker like?
Well, Zion, if anybody could have had his own sneaker company.
Yeah.
And he didn't. Kobe didn't have his own sneaker company. The only one really is MJ, because Jordan Brand was part of Nike, but it was really, just his stuff.
Right.
And look how that's done amazingly well.
Yeah, the only other person I could think of is I know Stephon Marbury had his affordable basketball shoe.
He did. And Shaq had one too, I think, at one time.
Yeah. And I like the message behind both those, which is the opposite of Big Baller. It was like, here's a nice $35 basketball shoe that is going to be reliable that any kid can afford. Now, obviously, they didn't have the cachet at the time that they released those brands to be, the shoe. And then there's still the whole shoe culture that never really took off. But I like
you know what, Jason? When I was growing up, Chuck Taylor's, which was the only really American shoe at the time, before Adidas and Puma got involved, it was the only shoe you could buy. And Converse was $9.95, which at that time was a lot of money. When you could go get PF Flyers or something else for $2.99 or $3.99. And if you showed up in anything other than Chuck Taylor's, people made fun of you.
Yeah. That's true.
Even though we played on asphalt all the time, we could wear out a pair of Chuck Taylors in 6-8 weeks.
But you had to have.
So, yeah, it's not like they lasted any longer. I mean, really, whatever you wanted, you'd wear out in 3 or 4 weeks. So, but I'm curious to see what happens. I mean, I hope this poor kid gets a chance. I hope he's not damned by his father. So, we'll see what happens.
Very true. We'll keep an eye on this story, but I guess we should continue with the XFL.
Let's talk about the XFL because yesterday, the attendance for the St. Louis game was 29,554, which is the highest mark in an XFL game this year. That was the opener for St. Louis, the first home game.
That's impressive.
And that's a big number. Now the Dragons, the Seattle Dragons had the mark before that. They had drawn 29 something. I think it should be close to 29,000 their first home game. And their second home game, they dropped down to about 22,000. So, now is it indicative that this is Southern check out and then they're done with it, or where are they with it? I mean, where's the quality of play? What's happening? I mean, the St. Louis crowd seem really, really into it for reasons like we discussed offline, like how much you trying to thumb your nose at the NFL and Crunky.
I think there was
certain. You really miss football. You haven't had football since 2016.
It's true.
And this is one of the only markets. Think about it. Is this the only XFL market without an NFL team in the market?
Which is what we thought they should have done all over the country.
And I think it is. I think every other market where they are, there's a team.
Yeah. And I guess, I mean, from a marketing standpoint, you would think the other, if you're Tampa, could you put a big push for week 6? We want to break the record and see if you can, I mean, I know that would be a one-time thing, but like maybe that could be a thing that they could, each market could try to outdo be like, let's show the rest of the country that Tampa is the best and we're going to have 30, 35, like.
Yeah.
But I mean, again, I know that's a one-game temporary kind of situation. It's not like this is how we're going to market it forever. But I mean, again, watching the highlights, like this is the best. I don't remember the USFL. Like I know that happened in the 80s and I was alive then, but I don't remember it. But this is the best alternate football league that I've seen. Like the first time the XFL was around was trash. The AAFL was not a great thing to watch, but like this is pretty solid football still. I mean, the quarterback play is still pretty shaky,
except for the kid in Houston.
Except for the kid in Houston,
who is saying he wants to play in the NFL.
Of course,
he's not saying he wants to be the greatest quarterback in XFL history. He's saying he wants another shot at the NFL.
Yeah,
which bodes interestingly for a couple reasons. One, does the XFL ever want to position itself as a developmental league? If so, is it possible? Or do they? I know they don't want to compete. They want to keep the spring league. Is there enough interest in football to play 10 weeks in the spring? Now, this is the first week of exhibition baseball.
Yes.
We're getting closer to the NHL playoffs. We're in the second half of the NBA season.
And this is where it gets fun in the NBA.
And this is also the NFL Combine this week. So there's a lot of competition now.
Yes.
The Masters is coming up in a couple weeks, well, about a month. So there's a lot of stuff going on. Is this sustainable? And yeah, part of me hopes that it is.
It'd be nice.
Jobs for people, it's opportunities. But, I've said all along, I expect it to play in year 2. I don't expect it to be in the same markets it's in now.
No.
And that's where I think we're going to see things in non-NFL markets like Orlando, San Antonio, San Diego. I mean, I don't think the LA team's going to make it in LA. I don't think the Tampa team's going to make it in Tampa. I'm pessimistic that the New York team makes it in New York. But, where Vince McMahon's head is. He wants to be in those major markets.
Of course.
He wants to be in New York and LA, and the NFL's not making it well in LA.
No, I was like, it's hard enough for the Rams in LA. Or not the Rams, sorry, the Chargers. I even forget they're even in there.
And the Rams, both of them have seats to sell.
Yeah. But especially the Chargers. Like, the Chargers are having a real rough time in LA.
Yep.
Which is why they're talking about offering Tom Brady a 3-year, $100 million contract just to try to bring some they've got to steal headlines in some possible way.
Well, they have to drum up some interest because they weren't selling out a soccer stadium.
No.
And now they're moving into the big stadium, and that would be a black eye for the NFL for the Chargers to draw 30,000 in a brand new stadium in LA. That would be horrible.
Yeah. But again,
so
TV.
Let's see where that goes. But all in all, I mean, there's still some bright spots for the XFL. So let's see where it goes.
Yeah, definitely.
Let's stay on football. A lot of controversy now about the 17-game schedule.
Yes.
And, I can't see the NFL taking a hard line with take it or leave it. But I can see them really wanting it because, they've got to figure out a way to increase that television money.
Right.
And probably the only way they're going to increase the television money is to have more product, more games. They're not going to get more money just for the NFL the way it is because the media rights are going down because ratings are down and they split it so many different ways.
Exactly.
So
But we should point out nobody is
Amazon or
suffering.
Google or somebody comes in, Netflix that comes in and buys an NFL contract, there's not going to be a cash influx. So we have to see, how this is going to be.
Now, here's a question for you. If you're Netflix, we both have talked about like sometimes we love watching our Steelers, and if it's a really great game, it's awesome to watch that hour-long NFL Network version, right?
Yeah.
If you're Netflix, do you think there's an interest in people watching that version? Like if you're getting on Monday, you're releasing all the games. They're the hour-long version of the game. Do you think there's a market for?
But I think the NFL Network has the rights to do that.
Right, but I mean, it is the NFL Network. They could clearly, also sell the rights to, I mean, do you think that? I mean,
I would think there's a possibility, sure.
Because I know Hulu right now, because if you watch, I know I bring up wrestling as an example, but the sport, but Raw, which is a 3-hour show, they edit down a highlighted version of Raw for Hulu that they show the next day. That I think it's pretty good ratings. So you already know the results, but it's just you're getting your chance to watch it in a smaller, more condensed format.
Right. So yeah, it could be.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of interesting things out there. But where do you think the players come down on the 17 games?
The loudest voice is obviously the voice you hear, but there's pretty much a no, no, no. I've heard some crazy. What do you think of? It's almost like the Little League where everybody has to play, but it's 17 games, but no player can play more than 16 games.
I've heard that one. Look what the NFL gave them. So marijuana is no longer going to be a penalty.
Right.
They're going to increase the minimum salary. And they're going to do all these things. And I think if the players turn it down, I think the deal will even get sweeter. Because the NFL really, like I said, they really need this 17th game.
Yes, they do. I don't see that everybody plays 16 games a real viable thing. Like, unless it was everybody plays 16 games except your quarterback can play 17. I mean, I just don't see a way that makes a lot of sense.
And yet, that's the one player at the most risk.
Right, exactly. But, I mean, they've made a lot of rules that make it a lot harder for that guy to get hurt. Now, granted, with the new... But as we're watching Lamar Jackson, and Mahomes does that a little bit too, like the running quarterback, obviously that becomes a much bigger... I mean, that's a risk over 16 games, any amount of time extra. I mean, I ultimately think the players might cave on a 17th game. I mean, I don't really give the NFL any credit on marijuana, something that never should have been illegal in the first place, and the country's moving in a certain direction. So,
well, here's what I think is the most interesting thing. All right?
All right.
All these guys voting on the 17 games, they're probably not going to be... When it goes into effect, which is a year, 2 years from now,
yeah,
a lot of them aren't going to be there.
No, it's true.
And so, do you get yours right now? Do you vote, say yes, and get what you get? I mean, it's also increased medical and some other things. I mean, you're not going to be the one that pays the piper for the 17 games.
No, it's true. Like I said, I think ultimately it's going to happen. So. It seems inevitable, I suppose, at this point. It's been discussed for so long. They've talked.
I don't think there's any doubt it's definitely going to happen.
Yeah. So, I mean, maybe you just cash in now and take it. I mean, like you said, you probably turn it down, try to push for, one other thing or something else. I would like to see, if you're moving to 17 games, maybe expand the date, the active roster to 60 play, Add up, add on more play.
That would be another reason the players would vote for it, because there's more jobs.
Right, and I think that's something the NFL could do, even if it's just maybe it's 2 more games, maybe it's 2 more whatever it is, 2, 3, somewhere between 2 and 5. Like, you're adding more jobs, and I think all the veterans would love that. And like I said, I'd still love to see some sort of like the NBA, where like if you're a player that was drafted, the number of years you have with that organization, that maybe a portion of your cap or your salary doesn't count against the cap. So we get, so veterans get to stay long, So if you have 5 years of service, whether it's, 5 or 10 or 15% of your salary won't count against the cap. So that maybe you're not a cap casualty and just replace with a younger player. Maybe they can keep the veterans or something, figure out something along those lines. Like I know that's more money, and owners probably aren't into that, but just some kind of thing.
Well, like I said, it'll be something we should follow. It's going to be really, really interesting.
And I guess because it's not going away, and we don't talk enough about baseball in the non-baseball season. We got LeBron James. We've had obviously Judge, Mike Trout. I mean, you have obviously LeBron James, a non-sports guy, coming out against the Astros. Um, yeah, man, it was confirmed. Like last week, we thought that Manfred said the stupid thing about the trophy. It turns out he did. He's apologized for it.
But your commissioner saying that was a bad message to the media,
Oh
to
yeah.
the fans, and to the players. I mean, this one's not going away for a while.
No, you saw that everybody booed them. Like they had a huge sellout for the Astros first game, and they all booed them. Like it was pretty brutal.
Oh yeah, I mean, more and more people are, saying they should take the title away.
And I do know that. I mean, I feel like Manfred. The one thing I don't know if I give him credit for, but pseudo defend him on. Obviously, the comment under indefensible, but the action he's taken based on the contract that they have with the players union, back tying it to the football union, they can't do anything. So he's ultimately just saying, I could do this. The players union would do this. It's almost like chess. Like when you concede that you concede you're gonna lose in 6 moves. It's boring to the person you're playing, but it's ultimately what's going to happen. The way the board is laid out, and with the way the union contract is, like no matter what he did to the players, ultimately nothing would be done to the players.
Right.
And they, I mean,
and that's a bone of contention among the other players, not on that team.
Right. But I mean, they're all part of that union. They all signed that agreement. Like that's working for them ultimately. In this situation, it's sort of working against them. But I mean, like I said, that he needs defending because he was kind of an idiot in a lot of the thing. But I mean, he's just sort of like, if I suspend them, the players union will come back. We'll lose the appeal. They won't be suspended. So why am I going to bother with the whole pomp and circumstance of the whole thing?
Yep. I guess what I'm waiting to see now is if it has an impact on viewership, and also if there's attendance issues when the Astros are playing on the road. So those are 2 stories I'm going to follow.
Well, I think the first time they play in every city, it's going to be a sellout. And I think there are going to be signs, and there's going to be yelling and booing and chants, and it's probably going to be pretty fun. And hopefully that's where it ends and people aren't throwing stuff on the field and it doesn't get ugly. But I can't imagine that people aren't like, especially with all the frustration in modern day society, that people aren't chomping at the bit to go yell at people for a 3-hour baseball game.
Yeah. Like I said, we're going to have to see it.
I mean, it might be the hottest ticket of the year is the first time the Astros play anywhere. But I mean, we also have to, they're all the ramifications. Like I said, it does come down to, and I was thinking back, like, you guys sent me to those basketball camps as a kid because I love basketball. And some of those camps were full of, college players, college coaches. And they pushed the win at all costs, go for every edge. And I remember, like, when we were working on boxing out drills, they literally showed me how to cheat as a 12-year-old. This is where you can put your foot. This is where you can get away with a grab because the refs aren't going to see you. And I know they're like, it's their job to stop you. You're just getting an edge. But I feel like that's, I realize the world's not fair, yada, yada, yada. But I think that the win at all costs, look for every edge, I think we've taken that past where it should be taken.
I agree.
And I'm sure I'm not the only kid that's been shown ways to cheat as a child to gain the system. And I think it's one thing to look for every edge if the edge is, studying film and doing all the right things. But it's another thing if it's like, you can get away with a grab here. If you put your foot here, you can kind of step on the guy's shoe and nobody's going to, like, things like that. I think we pushed it too far in that sports world where now, like I said, the Astros pushed it super far, but the door was already open and they just kicked it down further. But it's weird to be like, this is cheating, but this is okay cheating, but you took this cheating too far.
Yes. As soon as you added the technology to cheating, like if you were just using binoculars sitting out in the bleachers, which they've been doing for years and years and years.
Yeah, that's totally cool.
Seeing somebody in the scoreboard or whatever it was, a lot of flack on that, but now the technology thing, and if you watch the Astros, I mean, look how home runs they hit. Look how their batting average was at home.
It's insane, yeah.
I mean, they knew it was coming, so that's what happens.
Well, now we can transition to a wonderful story. My favorite / least favorite NHL player that's not a Penguin, Ovi, hit his 700th goal this week, which is an incredible milestone. He's actually on pace to catch Gretzky at this point, which seemed insurmountable.
He catch him in 4 years.
He catch him in 4 years. Yeah. He's one of the few players, like, after the Penguins had already won 3, I was really happy to see Ovechkin get his title. Because I like to see somebody that good win a title. Like, I feel like I don't want that ever be held against that guy.
Agreed.
It sucks to see, whether it's Barkley or some of these other players where it's like, he's great, but never won a title. And it's nice to see that, one of the all-time great hockey players is a Stanley Cup champion. So now all the MVPs, all the scoring titles, all that stuff is now cemented as, you've got your title. And I just wanted,
Since we're talking about hockey, how about our 42-year-old goalie?
That was another.
Coming out of the stands. How good of a show was that?
Yeah, a Zamboni driver becomes the oldest guy to get a win in the NHL. Like, that's just, that's a Disney movie waiting to happen, isn't it?
Yeah, it was amazing. And to come out, I saw their introduced a line of merchandise today.
Oh, yeah. Like, that story is right out of a Disney movie. And I know the one with the old pitcher was like 40 before he got his first and a major league start. Like, I know that's a true story, but like, this feels like a story that, you build it up a little bit, you put the right actor in the role, and you got yourself, yet another great Disney movie. But precocious kid add into the mix, you're good. It's incredible. Yeah. Beautiful story. Yeah.
It was a great story.
The Why We Love Sports kind of story.
I really like that story.
Yeah.
Oh, I know what I wanted to add. I forgot. Did you see that the quarterback for Houston? I can't remember his name. Is PJ something? What's his name?
Exactly, PJ something. But we'll know it next week.
Okay. Did you know the Steelers tried to sign him and were denied permission to talk to him?
I did.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Steelers tried to sign a lot of guys.
Yeah, that XFL thing. It's interesting how that all comes out because that would have been a great signing if he would have played that way in the NFL, which we don't know.
Right. But as the Steelers, the other thing the NFL is talking about is adding that 7th team to the playoffs, which the Steelers apparently would have 4 more playoff appearances based on that, including this past year. But if that guy had played, again, as we heard from me in the podcast, I love Duck. I thought it was a great story. I liked his pluckiness, the plucky duck. But, he wasn't an NFL player. Mason Rudolph does not look like an NFL quarterback. So, maybe if this guy had come in, he would have been a great story.
Maybe.
And I don't think that would have been a bad PR move for the XFL. Like, I understand you want to be a real league and you don't want to be losing players every time somebody, but if it's
like... he would never have played a game in the XFL, so nobody would have known what he was or he wasn't.
I guess that's true, but I guess they could have somehow, been like, our guy, our quarterback.
Or we'll loan him to you until our season starts.
Yeah, something.
Well, I don't know how I feel about the extra team in the playoffs. I like the wild card thing. I don't know if I like the best record getting an extra week by.
No, I think
it's
time
of year to heal players up. But again, maybe you sit her out that long. Maybe you don't play well. I don't know.
But again, that's another week of...
You can talk about it both ways.
It's another week of playoff football, which means another paycheck, so...
And one more week of fantasy, probably.
And one more week of fantasy. All good things. One more week of gambling. You can't beat it.
All right. Any entertainment or... Well, I saw Jojo Rabbit on your recommendation.
Yes.
And I thought it was a really, really good movie with a great message. And I liked everything about it except for the last 10 seconds of the ending, which didn't affect the ending. The movie was already over. It's just the execution of what it was.
Understood.
But I think if anybody hasn't seen it, they should go see it. It's really worthwhile.
I watched Lock and Key, a new Netflix series that is based on a comic by Joe Hill, who, as Marie and I pointed out when we were watching it, it's terrifying how much that guy, because he does a cameo in it, he looks like Stephen King from 20 years ago. Like, it's freakish how much he looks like he's dead.
Oh, I'm sure.
But I will say this. It's got a very WB the CW sort of teen show to it. Not necessarily a bad way. You know, it's got some Harry Potter vibes, some other things about magic keys in a house. But I really enjoyed it up till about the last two episodes, and then I thought they just had some of those gaping plot holes. So much so that I had to watch the showrunners talk because I was really disappointed with how bad. Like it just seemed like it seemed like they were writing for a few moments and writing for a next season. And maybe they only got the green light halfway through and they had to change on the fly. But I was very disappointed by where it ended going into season 2, to the point that I'm not even sure I want to watch season 2. So that's almost like an anti-entertainment moment. But
I continue to enjoy The Outsider.
Oh, fantastic. Love it. I've not watched the newest episode yet.
Really good.
Yeah, I'm sure. I can't wait.
The time just flew by last night was one of those ones that just the hour was gone so quick. And there's only 2 episodes left after last night. So it's hurtling toward a conclusion.
Here's a very bizarre entertainment moment. So I was waiting for my friend to finish up at the gym, and I'm in a little seating area, and they've got the big screen TV with the music videos playing. And 90% of the videos are just pop stars that aren't good enough to be pop stars. They get like the 4th or 5th best song the songwriter wrote. But it's still like, a relatively attractive girl dancing around, all that sort of stuff.
Right.
But they showed Foreigner they're on tour with like an orchestra. And I know neither of us are giant Foreigner fans by any stretch, but they're a classic rock band from the 70s if people don't know who they are. But I just want to give them a shout out. They're aging exceptionally well and dressing like they still had a cool rock star, but they didn't look like Steven Tyler, who looks like a crazed grandma at this point. It seems like they're...
That is true.
It seems like they were like they still had long hair, but they let them be gray. And they dressed like... Yep. They dressed like, it seemed, and again, I know it's, you dress how you feel and yada, 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 but it just seemed like they were aging in a nice, perfect way, where they still got to look like kind of cool rock stars. They sounded good, but, they weren't clinging desperately to youth like a Steven Tyler in a sad way.
Okay.
So.
Any food on your end?
I was trying to think. I don't think we did anything food this week. Yeah, no. We're trapped inside because it's Mardi Gras down here. So, you're either out at a parade or you're inside. And we've all done the parade, so we're kind of doing the hangout inside and just cook things.
I had DK Donuts again from L.A. And them, along with the San Diego Donut Bar, are my 2 favorite donuts I've ever had. And it kind of made me not want to have other donuts.
Mm-hmm.
So really good.
That's not necessarily...
And then I eat at Lowry's Prime Rib, where I always eat in L.A. I've talked about that before. And La Vecchia Cucina in Santa Monica, which is a really, really good Italian restaurant that I've gone to before. And I had some fish, and it was amazing. And we had pizzas and appetizer. Always good.
Okay, very nice. Very, very nice.
In San Diego, I ate at a restaurant called Barbusa up in Little Italy that was very, very good. They had more waiters and service people than I've ever seen in a restaurant. It was packed, and every one of the waiters was from Italy.
That's nice to see.
It was really authentic food. So Barbusa in San Diego.
Okay, that's one to keep an eye out for.
And I'm still pointing for our weekend 2 weeks from now in New Orleans.
Yes, Mosca's famous Italian mafia restaurant.
And GW fans are go-to. And I'll be posting more pictures, which Jason and I will be posting lots of pictures.
Yes.
From our eating in New Orleans. And we have some special dinner guests with us 1 or 2 nights.
Even better. All right. Well, I guess that probably does it for this week.
Yeah.
So, again, rate us, like us. Join the family on Patreon if you can afford it. But just listen, tell your friends. And again, if you can go to iTunes and rate us, it'd be so nice. Those algorithms really need to get our see us more. So